Depression for me has always been characterized by this void. Either I don't feel anything, I feel empty, or my mood is just incredibly low. And so I want to delve into my experience of depression and anhedonia. I hope you can relate to at least some of it, but leave your experience in a comment. I want to hear about it, how you deal with it, stuff like that. For those of you who are not familiar with anhedonia, it's a term for not being able to feel joy from things that usually make you feel joyful simply. And oftentimes I feel this alongside with depression. Now I knew going into recovery that anhedonia would be something I would face, and it's not something new to me. I've dealt with that for my entire life. With how depressed I've felt lately, it seems like that feeling of anhedonia has only increased more. I simply can't find any happiness from the things I used to. I kind of knew this would be the outcome for at least a while, but I just feel so tired. All I want to do is just go sleep, and the only way to deal with it is simply to go through it. Now for me, depression is often very cyclical, whether it's something in my personal life that happens that causes it, or like right now, it's obviously from quitting my addiction. What I've been doing to combat this when it comes up is I force myself to do all the things I don't want to do. It builds something called self-efficacy, which in turn helps with depression. I want to make a video on that at some point in the future. But yeah, man, it's been rough lately. I think that combination of anhedonia and depression is exactly the reason I feel this void. It's not the typical emptiness feeling right now, but it's still difficult. I try as much as I can to negate what I feel by doing what I usually do. So I still run, I still eat healthy. There's just so much resistance. Like even doing the laundry, even getting out of bed, even brushing my teeth, it seems like an insurmountable task currently. And now I used to have this pitfall where I would dwell on it, I would ruminate on it, and yet now I simply sit with it. I kinda embrace that depression. I know it's here for a reason, and I know it's only here for a short amount of time. But with my emotional impermanence, it is a very difficult cycle. So emotional impermanence is simply kind of like forgetting what feelings feel like unless you're in them currently. So as you can imagine, me not being able to feel joy and just feeling the depression to the degree I do. Now I could imagine for people that this is very oftentimes something that could make someone lose hope. Like that combination of not remembering what a feeling is like while not being able to produce any type of joy whatsoever. So this isn't necessarily advice, but if you can force yourself to do the things you absolutely don't want to do when you're feeling this way, you're still making progress even if you can't see it. Some of the most fruitful work I've done has been in these periods of depression. With my time in the psychiatry, I remember there was a point where I don't know why I kept going, if you know what I mean, but I kept putting in that work, and eventually it led me out of what I was dealing with. But if it hadn't been for me pushing on and having that grit to continue, despite my body kind of handicapping me, I don't think I would have succeeded in therapy like I did. Something else with depression that I often forget when I'm on the other side is just how much it impacts your relationships to other people. Now, I'm lucky and fortunate to be surrounded by people where I can be completely honest. So for example, with my partner, I'm like, hey, quitting cigarettes will mean this, this, and this. I will probably not be the most cheerful person for quite a while. And so that honesty, that openness, that rawness doesn't make a difference. I'm not necessarily looked at like someone who's lazy if I'm not working as hard as I usually do. And I think that support is very meaningful. Now, words of encouragement simply don't register with my brain, but to some degree it helps subconsciously. And knowing I can still rely on the people around me despite not being able to necessarily give as much as I used to or usually do is great. But yeah, man, I just feel so tired all the time. I'm so exhausted. It's one of those things where it would have put me back into addiction. Knowing I have an escape, or knowing I could get that relief immediately from what I'm currently feeling, was definitely what kept me in it. Um, Trying to escape that pain with something that eventually leads to even more pain. I mean, just that immediate reward when nothing you can do by yourself could help is a conundrum, you know? So I have so much understanding of people in active addiction. I have so much understanding of people who escape their suffering with substances, especially people with borderline. This time around, I'm sitting with the consequences of my addiction. All that pain that I tried to evade has caught up to me, and now is the time for me to deal with it. And that is exactly what I'm doing. It might not be pretty, it might not be fun whatsoever to have to do this currently, but what's the other option? I could continue down the rabbit hole of my addiction and stay in the same place forever and not progress. Or I could face this depression, this anhedonia, this chosen suffering in a way, and come out on the other side completely. Like, I will say, it feels like it's the time where it sticks. It feels like the time that I've finally beat my addiction. And I still feel the cravings like you wouldn't believe, but I simply have a future where it can't coexist. So this depression, how shitty I feel, it's a worthwhile investment almost, you know? Like, I can look at myself and I can kind of laugh at my choices in the past and what road it's led me down, but knowing I'm finally taking all the consequences and embracing them, and not hiding or evading them or letting that depression be the reason I would delve back into addiction. It kind of feels good to finally do something for myself despite all the reasons not to, you know? My addiction was absolutely a way for me to cope with PPD. This depression that I'm currently feeling would not be as bad, for example. Even making this video, I don't want to do this currently. Like, I don't feel like doing it, but I'm doing it anyways because I feel like I have something to say, and it can be so raw and so honest and so fruitful, exactly because it's what I'm currently going through. Like, this is completely off the cuff. I'm just speaking from my heart. And I hope you can feel that. I hope you can see my perspective on this. And so all the more reason as to do it exactly at this point where it's fresh and I'm not on the tail end of it. And I think seasonal depression definitely plays a role too. I love being outside, but I've kind of been locked inside the same four walls to some degree. The weather has just been absolutely terrible here, and it's cold and it's rainy and it's windy as fuck. And I think forcing myself outside as well has done a lot of good. Now, usually I would wake up, the first thing I would do would be down some caffeine, coffee, and smoke a cigarette. Within 2 minutes of me waking up, that would be what I would be doing. I think my depression also stems from how bored I am. Like, time feels like it's going at a crawl's pace. It's so slow. It seems never ending. It seems like every day is 10 times longer than they've used to be. For those of you who've dealt with depression, I feel for you. I definitely do. I hope you could find some solace in listening to me talk about what I'm currently going through. I'm so grateful for the community that we have, seeing all these people make content. I've been watching way more YouTube recently, and it kind of helps with my depression, not having to take it as serious all the time, and striking that balance with being in the darkness of it, but also kind of taking a step back sometimes and just allowing myself to relax and watch YouTube videos and not be too hard on myself is absolutely key for me getting out of it. I've been playing a lot of old games I haven't tried before. We've been going to the cinema and watching Harry Potter. They're showing them again, and just being able to sit and play one of the games has been great too. I think one of my next videos will be more cheerful than this one. I think I want to delve into the video games I've been playing recently and how it helps, and how video games can be an escape, but in a positive way too. Even if they don't necessarily bring joy to me currently, I still find some solace, some peace in being able to spend my time on and a video game that brings me a experience that I haven't had before. I owe a lot to video games, I really do. Oh man, I could even make a video on the framework of platinum trophies and how that helped me succeed in therapy. I think I want to do that. I think I've said what I wanted to say about my depression currently. To those of you listening, if you have any tips that you've found to help with your depression, feel free to leave them below. This has more so been a conversation for me to get stuff off my chest. It truly means a lot to see the comments that I've been getting. I know people aren't necessarily always the happiest. I know struggle is a part of life, and for those of you that share yours with me, I'm truly grateful. All I can say is keep doing that. It means a great deal. And I think that knowing I'm not necessarily alone in what I'm feeling is oftentimes the most helpful thing. A topic for another day is being mentally ill and the loneliness that comes from that. I really want to delve into that. I think I have a lot to say on that topic too. But yeah, if you can sense my mood being completely off, this is what I'm dealing with. And it's been Nico. Thank you for listening. See you on the next one.